They had to try and stop the advance somehow. You understand that, I hope. This is the last of the coffee, I'm afraid. Who would have thought that the fallout would keep us down here for so long? Now, there's something that I want you to believe. Nobody actually intended your families to die like that. Or your school friends, for that matter. The German general in question, well, he was... Put yourself in his shoes, if you will, for a moment. He was always opposed to the use of nuclear weapons. In fact, he said, do you want me to be tried like a war criminal, like others were before me? But on the first day, Soviet armor had advanced 40 miles into West Germany. On the second day, 80 miles. And it was then that the American Supreme Commander told the German general, we are going to stop this war with nuclear weapons. Your Chancellor and my president are in full agreement about this. So it's come to this, said the German general. Well, at least, thank God, it won't be my decision. Oh, but it will, my friend. We want you to select the targets. Oh, there must be some other way. If I could swing the Netherland Corps round onto the flank. But the subordinates were getting impatient, although the British general was stiff-lipped. There's quite a lot of blood flowing up here, although we've managed to nudge his armor into a nuclear fire zone quite effectively. Put in a good word for us. There's a good chap. Nuclear fire zone, including villages, farms, people, civilians. The American commander was adamant. We are going to accomplish 8 nuclear strikes on armored spearheads of your choice, and we are going to send 8 missions in the rear in Czechoslovakia and East Germany. You see, the Americans calculated that they could smash the Soviet armor at the same time saving New York and Chicago. Not Cologne and Munich, unfortunately. You remember the postcard I showed you of Cologne Cathedral? It's a very beautiful one it was. A German corps commander, almost surrounded, added his voice to the rest. Mein General, warum wollen Sie mich im Stich lassen? Why am I being abandoned like von Paulus in Stalingrad? Where are the nuclear weapons? So, at length, the German general consented. Very well, although may my tongue rot for saying so. Oh, you know the targets in any case. And so, the Germans and the Americans were in full accord, and in the morning of the third day, the first bombs lit up the skyline like a false dawn. Although, as the German general had said all along, why on earth would the Russians back down when they're winning? And of course, when the Russians didn't back down, there was no logical time or place for the nuclear exchanges to cease. There's a new form of racism which suggests that nuclear weapons are respectable, but only for rich, predominantly white countries. After all, it's rather grand to be a superpower. You can continue to improve your weapons while preaching piously about peace. If you're a smaller nation with only a very few nuclear weapons, then I'm afraid this is irresponsible, if not criminal. Well, whether there is or not any wisdom at all in this hypocrisy, proliferation would seem to point a second way towards a Holocaust, this time through the less affluent parts of the world. And the greatest danger of all lies here in the narrow streets of the Middle East, where modern technology serves ancient bitterness. The holy city of Christians, Jews, and Muslims, the order is strictly alphabetical. It has been the focal point for conflict for thousands of years. Jerusalem is at this time in Israeli hands, but you can look north towards the Soviet Union with its Muslim minorities and affiliations, east towards a patchwork of Muslim states, patient yet unforgiving, south towards Mecca, the power of religion and of oil, and west towards America, Israel's powerful friend. It is hard to see how an eventual nuclear anarchy can be avoided in this area. Already in very few years, several states could have bombs of their own, to say nothing of certain minority groups. Even with a bomb smaller than that of Hiroshima, maddened men could be responsible for hundreds and thousands of deaths, a tragedy which would be attributable to man's folly, or here, to the wrath of God. Anybody who can count up to 5 will tell you that that building over there is the Pentagon. Well, tabloid newspapers like nothing better on fallow days than to publish pictures of cats and dogs in perfect harmony, playing innocently together. It seems to prove that instinctive antagonisms can be countered with a little patience. Superpowers also have instinctive antagonisms by virtue of their size, their influence, their power. And they adopt aggressive postures before any calmer counsel can prevail. Well, how can harmony be brought to superpowers? First of all, it's essential for them to understand each other's point of view. You are seeing the world there from the point of view of the West. I, over here, from my surrounded position, see it from the point of view of the Soviet Union. And I seem to sense from here, from being surrounded, I seem to sense your aggressions, I seem to sense your paranoia even, and your fear. Why? Because of your troops and listening stations in Alaska, throughout the Arctic Circle, down Europe, across Turkey, Iran, where a hole was driven into the hedge only the other day with characteristic outcry, Afghanistan, where the hole was punctured in the other direction, China with its offer to the United States to compensate for the lost listening posts in Iran, and back to Alaska again. And there is nothing in history to reassure me from here. After all, they remember only too well that in 1917, feeble expeditionary forces from the United States, Britain, and France landed in order to attempt to thwart the 1917 revolution. They did nothing, in point of fact, but give the Red Army its first battle honors and its first experience against foreign troops. You may remember how exercised the United States was when there were Soviet missiles on Cuba. Well, what would be the position of the United States and of the entire West, I wonder, if there were Soviet troops and listening devices all along the Canadian border, all along the Mexican border, and throughout the Caribbean? We must remember, and remember solemnly, that a cornered animal and a cornered man are the least open to appeal. There comes a moment when the terrible lucidity of desperation takes over, and then there is no way back.